Welcome to the Building in Decentraland video series. These videos are recordings of the live sessions of the inaugural class offered by the VR Academy, which is a school within Decentraland University. My name is Fravel, and I'm the instructor of this course. These videos are largely unedited recordings of the live class sessions. The descriptive text provided below this video includes information about Decentraland, a virtual reality on the blockchain, the Decentraland University and its schools, including the VR Academy, and the course materials for this course, including the lessons and assignments. I hope that you enjoy studying these materials and that they help you to become a very capable builder in Decentraland. Why don't we start with briefly introducing ourselves. And if you see my screen, there's a participants list over here. Maybe we just go down the participants in this order. So Diego, if you have voice, do you want to just briefly introduce yourself? I think you're muted. Am I audible?
Yeah, I can hear you, Carl.
Yeah, okay. All right, so Rob, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself briefly?
Okay, my name is Robert Lynn. I'm the district leader of District X, and Carl and I run that district, and I've been involved in Decentraland since probably November of 2017.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Hi guys, my name is Ivan. I'm a lawyer, corporate lawyer from Russia, involved in blockchain since 2016. Watching at Decentraland for about a year. I'm very excited about all this stuff, and so I'm here to learn more about it.
Welcome.
Hey guys, I'll jump in. My name is John, and I've been involved in cryptocurrency since about, 2010. I did a lot of early mining activities and have gotten into Decentraland more for the monocoin aspect, but because I now am more of a landowner, I want to figure out how to do this myself so I can figure out a way to monetize stuff. And it would be nice if between now and the next couple of years, I can actually own something that, I can call my own, as far as something that can monetize the actual virtual land that I've invested in. So nice to meet you guys.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, sorry, I guess that leaves me. I'm Katherine, a 3D artist, a modeler. Been involved with Decentraland for not very long, just a couple of months. And I want to learn more about how to do more of the coding stuff, put things on land, and I got some land now, so I'm excited to build on it thanks to this course. So nice to meet you guys.
Yeah, I just want to say Catherine's been making some models for the forest, and for she's working on stuff for the conference center. So thank you, Katherine. So I think that's all the introductions that people are wanting to make. So we'll go ahead and get started. I'll tell you why I'm doing this class. It's because I've been working with the SDK and with Decentraland since the very beginning of their becoming, out in the public. And it's been a bit of a long haul to figure out how to make stuff and get it on the land and work with the SDK and now the builder as it's here. And You know, I've been keeping a lab notebook for about 2 years of all the stuff I've been learning. And it's been a little bit of a steep climb. And I figured that it'd be really useful to share that knowledge with a cadre of builders that would then be, you know, available to help themselves and others build in the world and accelerate the development of the world. I enjoy teaching and sharing, and so that's why I'm doing this. And I'm very glad that we have some people here who have that vision and want to learn. So this is actually officially the first course of the Decentraland University through its school called the VR Academy, which does not yet have a venue in world, but will shortly. And there is a certificate to be given out for those who complete the course and finish the assignments. So be diligent. If you have to miss a meeting, catch up. I will be posting the recordings of the meetings. This is being recorded now, and I will be recording all of these live sessions and making them available to those who are auditing or who had to miss one of the sessions. The basic format of the course will be that we'll hold these live sessions. I'm thinking at this time on Saturdays each week, but we may need to be a little flexible. I actually have a conflict on one of the weekends in August, so we may have to move the time that time. I'm also open to input as to other times that would be possible and work for people. I'd rather not do it on a weeknight after my work because I'll be kind of tired and won't be as up for it, but we could be a little flexible as to Saturdays and Sundays. Saturday is the best for the folks I know, their schedule. So then in each session, what we will do is we will review any open issues and demos from the previous assignment. Today, there is no previous assignment, obviously. Maybe talk about a few advanced topics that people have questions about during that time. And then talk about the next week's assignment. I think most of these assignments can be done in a week. We can decide to make an assignment longer if it's challenging and people want more time. We could also, you know, conceivably do 2 assignments in a week, but I don't think that we'll probably generally do that. I want it to be at a pace where just about everybody can keep up, and those who are struggling a little bit can get some extra time with me or others in the class in the Discord discussion, which is what we'll use between classes. I will be asking for an assignment result from each assignment, something to be submitted back for review. It's usually just a screenshot or a little piece of code or something like that. I want those to be delivered to us collectively in the class's Discord channel, the text channel. Someone right below the lobby, and it's called course, starts with the word course, and it's a text channel. I just posted in there. And I will be, you know, keeping track of who completes which assignments to make sure everybody that wants to get a certificate has completed. Somewhere down the road towards the end when the certificates are being prepared, I'll want to know what name you want to use for on your certificate, whether it be your real world name or your handle or both. Any questions about the format or scheduling or anything so far? All right, so then I'm going to move on to a few of the tools and things we're going to use. There are a lot of 3D modeling tools. Most of them you have to pay for. A few of them are free. I'd say hands down one of the very best modeling tools is free, and it's Blender. And a modeling tool is used for making 3D models. And some of you are already skilled in that. The other thing that we'll be learning that's, you know, a learning curve is the TypeScript programming language that is used in Decentraland. And the code editing tool I want to recommend that people use for this course is the one from Microsoft. It's free. It's called Visual Studio Code. And in the assignments below, often I simply call it code because you can launch it from the command line in DOS or whatever console you're using on your operating system. You can launch it just by typing code. Any questions on those tools or any of those expectations? I don't expect that people know either of those environments yet at this point. I just want to make sure I'm being heard. So you guys are nice and quiet, but I just want to make sure that you're hearing what I'm saying. Can somebody let me know?
I can hear you, Carl.
Okay, very good. So I just put up here kind of the high level of what some of the topics are that we'll be covering. And we'll do it. We'll do them as a series of assignments. And the assignments are being elaborated later in this document. I have half a dozen of them pretty much done. I did a little bit more work on the first one last night. And I'm not going to read through all these topics, but there they are. And they're approximately in the order that we'll do them. As to myself, I did my first programming for money in 1971. So that's why I have white hair. That picture of me on the right is my avatar associated with my name. And before too long, we'll be able to go into World and see each other's avatars with the right ones. Right now, I think that if I go into the World, I show up as a scantily dressed woman, which is kind of fun. But I think eventually I'll get to use my real avatar. That other picture is a picture of taking me near the Mississippi River a few years ago while I was teaching a class to a group of people sitting around out there on the lawn. That really is me, and my hair is whiter now. If you want to learn more about my professional experience, you have my LinkedIn link. I did write a book just as Sansar was coming online as a 3D world about how to create content in there. So I've been doing this for a little while. Also, you should know I am officially an advisor to Decentraland and have been since before since after the ICO, but before the original land terraform event. So I help them with community development, and it also gives me some information, access to information that isn't necessarily secret, but just maybe hasn't been shared widely yet. And so sometimes I'm this, the sharer of that information, and then sometimes they share things with me that I have to keep confidential until they announce it. But it does give me kind of a leg up and helps me be a good teacher for something like this. This course is free. If you would like to make a donation or a tip at any point, thank you. So the assignments, like I said, they will be launched at the time of the live sessions. We'll start with when we launch one, we'll start with a little bit of overview of it, talk about it. And then the work is to be done on your own during the time between the meetings. There's no such thing as cheating in this course. Feel free to go get material from other places to help each other, either privately or in the course chat room. Part of what I'm trying to do here is build collaborative teams of developers. So like I say, there's no such thing as cheating. I will ask for evidence of your work to be posted there so that I'll know that you've completed the course. But if you want to work on things together, that's fine. Let's go on to the first assignment. Any questions first? Oh, I just missed a question a little bit up. Yes, we'll be using the 2.8 version of Blender. Um, it when I looked last night, it was still in release candidate 3. It's been out and being used since early this year. I've been using successive beta releases of it. It's very solid. I've never had it do anything awful. And so the reason for 2.80 instead of the widely and long used 2.79 is that they've greatly changed the way that the user interface works, and it's much easier to learn and to use. So those of you who are familiar with 2.79, you have a little relearning to do. It still does the same things, but the way you work them on the screen is different, and frankly, I think a lot easier to learn. So it's a good change. The other nice thing about 2.8 in Blender is that it can import and export built into it, or importers and exporters for the file format that Decentraland requires for models, which is GLTF. That's new in 2.8. It didn't used to have an importer. So if you have a GLTF that you want to change a little bit, a model you want to change a little bit, and you only have it in that format, then you can bring it into Blender and change the look of it or twist it or whatever. Okay, let's go through a little terminology. Parcels and land. So as we know, land is an NFT token. That means it's a one-of-a-kind token for that land, and it's one-of-a-kind in the sense that it has coordinates where in the world that it is. A parcel is 16 meters by 16 meters of ground space, and you can build up from there. What you see on the ground when you haven't built anything yet in a parcel is a grid, meter grid, that sits a little bit below the ground level. It's like the ground is transparent and you can stand on it, but underneath it there's a grid. So if you put something on the ground like a ground cover, you don't see the grid. And there's a coordinate system for parcels in the world. You can think of it as X and Y, where X is the east-west dimension of addressing of parcels, and Y is the south-north direction. So to the west of the center of the world is 0, 0. It's in the middle of the central plaza. To the east of that is positive in X, and to the west of that is negative in X. And to the north of that is positive in Y, and to the south of it is negative in Y. So when you get access to the world, some of you probably have beta access already. You'll see that let me just show you this. This is useful to know. If you have it access, Decentraland, sometimes this happens in the preview too when you're working SDK. It wants to know your wallet address in case you want to interact with the world and pay for something. So, and it's saying, yeah, I'm going to connect and let my wallet be seen so that I can pay for things. And then you often see this login also. This is where it says, who are you? This is right now it's being used to allow a white list of people into the world. And they send you an email code to that email address. Let me just look up the code that I just got. And these logins in MetaMask and for your identity or address, they keep for the rest of your session that you're logged into the browser. I'm using my phone to look at my address here. There it comes. And when you first log into the world, just at explorer.decentraland.org, and again, I'm sorry, not everybody here probably is on the beta, but I will be asking that you be added to it as soon as possible if you're not. So if you're not already on it, privately message me and I'll make sure. You'll need to send me your email address and I'll forward that to the person that's handing out the betas. See if we can get you in. When you first log in, it adds something to the URL, which is the position in the world that you're logging into. Right now it's saying I'm right near the center of the central plaza in the world. And the content is taking a little bit to load here because it's a very complex scene. In the meantime, let me just put up a map of the world, which you can see at market.decentraland.org like this. And I don't know if you've visited this before, but among other things, it has a map of, after I hit get started, it has an atlas of the world. You can zoom out some. I'm going to temporarily drop these guys down here. And you can grab and move the map around. And there's also a little kind of a cursor over here. If you click someplace, you jump to that place in the world. Like, for example, the conference center is up here. District X is here. So you can find your way around the map. And when you hover over a parcel on the map, it gives you the coordinates in the same format, X and Y. So we are to the west of center here. You can see that on this mini map. We're over on the left side of the map. So the numbers here can be negative in X, and we're north of the center, so it can be positive in Y. And in the marketplace, it shows the. Do you have a question? Somebody unmuted. Getting an echo here. I'm not sure. There it shows up. All right, so there's a little bit of an issue when you first enter. If you don't say the coordinates, if you first enter the world, you are in a body of water that you can't get out of. Oh, they fixed it. You can get out of it now. Okay, they must have just fixed that. But anyway, here is kind of. Are you able to see my screen? Okay, good. There's a setting here. If the screen is really jerky and awful, I think there's a setting where that would project the video a little bit better. I could turn that on, but I've never tried that. But what I'm seeing is a little bit jerky as I move my mouse around. But anyway, so this is a look in Decentraland. It's a common look. It's what the builder makes. It's called low poly. The objects don't have very much complexity to them. And typically, often they have only color on the surface. They don't have like a photographic texture or a painted texture. So they're simple. But it's quite lovely. And some of us were in world yesterday, just playing around together. And within a little while, you're pretty immersed in the space, even though it's a pretty simple look. I'll show you another look that's different. Oops, my mouse is there. Okay. What I've done is I've picked a URL that I have bookmarked that has different set of coordinates, 1194, which is pretty much to the north and a little bit to the east of the central plaza. And in this scene, you can see that if you put a nice texture on a material, on a surface, it can look quite almost photorealistic. I mean, that's pretty good, right? And you can also put an image on something like a map this is the map of the conference center. This is the main entrance to the conference center. That is the VARC district there with a bunch of architectural work being done. That's one of the plazas, the North Central Plaza. And this client occasionally crashes when you walk long distances, but as we walk around here, we will see things appearing like that over there. If you hold down the shift key while you're walking, you get to run. Walking is even pretty fast. So again, you can see you can get pretty good texture on things if you put a texture on the surface. So we'll be talking about materials and textures later in the course. I have kind of a grassy texture on the ground here and some tiles here. And the newest version of the SDK has really sparkly, shiny stuff. We may crash here. We're running across this big expanse of land. It's happened sometimes. This is a lotus-shaped temple. Over here we have a scene that has a large amphitheater in it. It's going to take a moment to load. I thought it'd be useful for you guys just to kind of see what things can look like, so that we refer to them and kind of how the coordinate system in the world works. The parcels of land are 16 meters by 16 meters. And when you don't have something on the ground, you see a meter grid that's just slightly below the ground. It's like you're standing on glass here, and right below it, there's a meter grid. There it is. I wasn't quite where I thought I was. There. That's the large amphitheater. Oh, and there's some trees over here. I'm running. I put some mannequins in the world just to give a sense of scale and that you're not all alone. This is a large amphitheater that the modeler CyberMike made for the conference center. It's kind of it's like a kind of a Greek amphitheater, but also it has some kind of hints of Celtic. So you can see you can get pretty nice foliage on trees, grass, stone textures. I mean, it's looking pretty good, right? So low poly doesn't have to mean low quality look. It can be pretty close to photorealistic. So I just wanted you to know that as you're heading into this course. So I'll go back to the syllabus here and talk a little bit more. So there's a concept of a scene. A scene is what you build. A scene lives on one or multiple parcels. I have the largest scenes I have are like 9 parcels by 9. That'd be 81 parcels. Those are very big. Most people are building one scene, or maybe, a 4 by 4 parcel scenes. All of the parcels in a scene have to touch each other. I mean, it has to be contiguous. You can't have some parcels over here and some parcels over there. The content in a scene can be the ground cover. It can be plants, trees, buildings, mannequins. Obviously, avatars that show up in the scene are there, but you don't build those in the scene. But there can be sound and animations. And the scene is glued together. All that content is arranged and glued together, so to speak, into a scene using the TypeScript programming language that says, here, put a tree into the scene and put it over here, put a wall over here, and these are the models to use to do that. That's done in TypeScript. But the Decentraland builder actually generates that TypeScript for you, whereas when you're working in the SDK, you're writing that script yourself. So the Decentraland builder today can only make static scenes. It can arrange the things in a scene, but they don't move around. They don't if you touch them, nothing happens. If you want to do that, you have to use the SDK. I want to take a pause for any questions. Moving on. The two building methodologies that are provided by Decentraland are the Builder tool, which is what you see is what you get sort of visual editor for a scene. It comes with a large library of low poly and simple textured objects, like the things you saw in that first scene that we went into. The other method that they have provided is to use the SDK, which means you're working with your own hands. You're working with bringing models in. You're doing some editing in TypeScript. The good news is that you can build something initially in the builder and then export it and do additional work in the SDK. They are compatible in that direction. Once you start modifying the TypeScript of the scene, you can't take that modified scene back into the builder. If you modify the script, the builder wouldn't probably know what to do with it. That's correct, Ember. They're planning to add scripting support for behavior as components that you can add on to models, so that like if you touch it, something happens, or you can cause it to move, stuff like that. But that's down the road a little bit. And right now, the builder can only use the curated library items from Decentraland. They're built into the palette there. We'll see that today in a little bit. You can't bring in custom models yet. That's also on the roadmap. The words entity, model, and object are almost synonymous, but they're used in different contexts. Inside the TypeScript code for a scene, the things you were working with are called entities in there. When you buy one of those things on a store, it's typically called a model. It's in some file format, like either a Blender file format or a GLTF format. If you have a modeler make something for you, they will pass you a model file. If you make something for somebody else, that you'll pass them a model file. When you're working inside of a tool like Blender, in Blender, that thing is called an object. So if I use one or others of those terms, I could have possibly used not the most obvious one, but basically they're synonymous. There's two primary kinds of creative activity that people have to do to make a scene. You either have to do it yourself or you have to find somebody to help you do it. One of them is modeling, which is creating 3D objects. Models, or what will become entities in the scene. We will use Blender to make models. We'll use Blender to convert models that we get from a model store like CG Trader. When you get it, it probably is not a Blender file or a GLTF file, so you'll have to import it and then probably save it as a Blender file, but then export it as a GLTF or GLB file that works with Decentraland. So that part of the creative work is called modeling. And I don't want to downplay the fact that there's other kinds of creative work like sound design, architecture, creative design in the large sense of how a scene ought to work. But when you start needing to actually put things in it, you're going to need models. So you can make them, buy them, scrounge them. There's free sites. You can get somebody to help you build them, hire them, whatever. Hopefully you'll have skills to earn some money doing this. The other kind of creative activity is scene building. That's where you take some models and some ground cover and maybe some behavioral scripts and assemble them either in the builder to make a static scene or in the SDK if you want to get more complexity to the behavior and arrangement of the scene. Right now, also you have to use the SDK to use custom models that you buy or make. So modeling is creating models. Scene building is kind of arranging them. you think of it as interior landscaping or interior decoration. So Blender is the tool used for modeling in this course. The Builder and the SDK are the tools we use for scene building. You may hear reference to a development pipeline. This has to do with, there's a whole sequence of things that have to happen in building a scene and deploying it. They're the items in this bullet list here. The modeling, which is bullet 3, and the scene building, which is bullet 4, are two really important pieces, but they're not the whole thing. So if you're talking about that whole thing or the sequence through it, you may hear the term development pipeline. Just wanted you to know that term. So I'm going to do a kind of a quick run through of the assignment so you can kind of see how this stuff works. I'm not going to actually walk through it here through the text of it. I'm just going to go show you how to use the builder in case you have not seen it. You do not need to have be on the beta whitelist to use this. This is open to the public. So the URL you use is builder.decentraland.org. And when you get there, you're looking at a kind of a landing page for the builder. And in it, you'll see any scenes that you've made. They are temporarily and kind of transiently, I guess, stored in the browser's storage mechanism, which means if you uninstall Chrome and reinstall it, you won't have your scenes anymore. So there's a way to download them and store them outside the browser on your machine, and I recommend that as a backup if you're working on a scene. I have a few scenes that I've just started here. Obviously, you can delete a scene if you don't need it anymore. It's really gone unless you've backed it up. But you won't have any of those when you first come in. But what you will see is what size do you want to make your scene? I'm going to make it 2 by 2, 2 parcels by 2 parcels. So it'd be 32 meters by 32 meters. And when you do that, it creates a new scene for you and puts you into the scene editor. I'm going to pull this down a little bit so you can see the palette on the right. By default, it puts grass on the ground. The scene is actually 4 parcels, and you can't see that. It doesn't show that really here anywhere. But over on the right, you have a palette of curated content that's provided by Decentraland for free. And there's different kind of categories of things here, but the basic building blocks are in the Genesis City thing, which you open it up and you find things like trees and fences and fruits and here's one of my favorite trees. I'm clicking on it and dragging it over into the scene and dropping it. And it's there. Now, it is currently selected for editing so that you see the blue haze around it. I'm clicking again and dragging, and I'm just moving it somewhere else. You also can, up here at the top, use these arrows. You can turn these arrows on and off and do like this. You can also turn on the rotating tool, and you can turn the tree. Currently, the builder does not have a sizing mechanism. I assume that'll come later. There is an undo. I think it just undoes the most recent change. You can put, put some other trees in here. And I'm just clicking and dragging things over. You can put a rock in the scene. You can put a little rock pool. So those are some of the examples of kind of the stuff from the Genesis City collection. It's mostly flora. If I go back here and go to tiles, these are tiles you can put on the ground, and you can zoom in with the mouse scroller, or if you use, I think you can also do it with, I'm clicking and dragging on the ground and it rotates the scene. This little tile is sitting here. I'm sorry, there it is. You can zoom in and out with the arrow keys and side to side, and you can turn it by clicking on the ground and turning it. And if you want to make a path, for example, you would do like this. So you get the idea. This gives you a static scene. The assignment is to do this yourself and make a snapshot at the end, and make it available to us in the course, the text channel for the course. I'm going to take a little bit further here because the assignment also has you taking a look at the inside of the scene and how to do a download and backup of the scene. So if you click on the scene, you can say, give it a new name. And you can provide a description if you want. I think you could even change the layout, but I'm not doing that right now. I've never tried that. And up here in the upper right, well, no, first, before we do that, there's a preview button here. That's an eyeball. And if you click on that, you see what the scene is going to look like as though you were in the world. You're only seeing the one scene, but you can actually walk around it with the WASD keys, the WASD keys. And the mouse, you can turn and look. It's just like you're in the world looking around. So it's very three-dimensional. And if you want to leave the scene, you hit escape to get your cursor back to pointing at things, and click on the X and you're back here. And then this download is important. Up here in the upper right, download scene. What it does is it exports the scene in a zip file that contains the scene in two different ways. My antivirus is telling me that's dangerous, so I'm going to keep it anyway, because no, it's not dangerous. And when it finishes downloading, I can open it. It's a zip file. And there's two important things in it. One thing is this file right here, builder.json. If you upload this zip file back into the builder, and I'll show you where to do that, it actually opens up the zip file, gets this one file out. This one file defines the whole scene in a text format, and we can actually look at it. Oops. You can kind of see how it looks inside the file. Looks like that. Not very human readable, not designed to be. It's designed as simply a way to restore the scene into the builder. All of the rest of the files in here are an SDK rendering of the scene. So it has already output it for the SDK. And this is the standard layout of directories and files for the SDK. The most important file, if you want to say that, the central file is this one in the SRC directory. The SRC stands for source. And if you open that up, it's always called game.ts. If you open that up, now you see SDK TypeScript. Basically, you see all the different things that we put in there. The floor-based grass was what was already there. It comes in 4 times. I guess it's 1 parcel large, and it just covers those. And then there's trees, etc. We will eventually, in this course, understand how to read this code and how to write it, or how to edit it to make some changes. If you want to download a scene in order to preserve it in a particular state and to save it in case you might want to save it to the cloud or some safe place. In case you lose your browser content, you can reload it. The way you do that is back on the main landing page of the builder. It has a red area here called Upload Scene, and you would drag it from Explorer onto here, or go search for it. I think it's in Downloads. Yeah, right there. That guy right there. If I upload it, it will actually create a new scene for me with the name. I didn't lose this, so I have both copies of it. That's how that works. So the assignment at the end of this work is to go into your scene, take a good screenshot of it, and upload that image to the course channel. I'm going to pause now and let there be questions and discussion. Don't be shy.
I have a question, Carl.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks for this class. I have already tried the builder, and I have a question about the limitation, as I understood it. At the bottom, on the left, there, when you look at the scene, please open one. At the bottom on the left, there is some kind of limitations, and when I use too many graphs or something, I have the warning that there is, for example, too many triangles.
Yes.
And with this limitation, I can't upload the scene on the inside the Decentraland. Am I right? And please just tell a bit more about this limitation.
Yes. Yes. In order to keep the rendering fast in World, and the reason why you want it fast is that if the frame rate is too slow or if it's too laggy when it's generating the visuals of the scene, you can get motion sick, especially later when they start supporting VR headsets. If you turn your head and it takes a little while for the scene to turn, you'll get motion sick pretty fast. And they want to have people have a good experience. And also, you saw even scenes that fit the limits can take quite a while to load. In order to manage that trade-off, they're putting limits on how much you can put in a scene. There's a number of different limits: height limits, number of entities, number of files, number of textures. But the one you're most likely to run into quickly with low poly content, and very quickly with content that isn't low poly, is the triangle limit. So we'll go into more depths on what triangles are later, but let me just give you a quick overview of it. So when you're working with a mesh object, a 3D model, part of the reality of that model is like a wireframe mesh that has, points, vertices in space, and lines connecting them. They're called edges, and polygonal surfaces between those lines that make a face. And in many 3D model systems, including Decentraland, the faces have to be divided up into triangles. So if you have a cube, it has 6 faces. But the triangulated mesh will have 12 because each face will have a diagonal across it to make it 2 triangles. There is a triangle limit per parcel. And as your scene gets bigger, the triangle limit gets bigger. But I'm not sure. I think it doesn't get bigger linearly. I think it gets bigger logarithmically. Same with height. And so if you make a really complex scene, or if in the SDK you make a scene with really complex mesh, really complex objects, you will run into a triangle limit. And when you exceed that triangle limit, they won't allow you to upload it to your land. The limitations for scenes are documented. Let me show you where. The documentation for Decentraland is at docs.decentraland.org. And I think you search for it, scene limit limitations, right? Scene limitations. It's a page part way down here under the development guide, scene limitations. It is, it's linear now. That's nice. It was logarithmic before, I think. So if you double the number of parcels, you have twice as many triangles you can add to the scene. So 10,000 triangles is the limit per parcel in a scene. That sounds like a lot. But you know, if you have 100 triangles for a tree or something, and you put 100 trees in the scene, well, you're going to hit that in a parcel, then you're going to hit that limit. If you put a building in that has 8,000 triangles, you only have 2,000 triangles left for putting decoration around. So this is one of the reasons why when we go hunting for models in a later assignment, we're going to be paying close attention to how many triangles the models have. And typically you're really happy if you can find something with less than 100, but you sure want to have most of your things be only a few hundred triangles at most.
Carl, do you know if these limits are likely to change?
I think they will change. I think the thing that will change them is improvements to hardware. They're trying to make it possible for people with fairly low-end computers to have a fine experience because they want a mass audience. They don't want people to have to go out and buy high-end gaming computers to have a decent experience in their web browser. I've tried this. I've tried the world in a little Dell laptop I have at work that does not have a high-end graphics chip in it. Like the machine I'm working on right now has a an NVIDIA chipset, pretty recent high-end model, and the one at work works pretty well. Works almost as well as this because of these limitations. You want that higher end graphics if you want to be able to do really fast work like in Blender, but the tools and everything we're using here should work on pretty much any computer that has even a halfway decent chipset in it. But the one I have at work is just an Intel high definition graphics chip, pretty standard stuff. And that's why they have these limits. They used to have a limit on the size of a texture being 512 pixels by 512 pixels. They have recently stated that they're going to not impose that limit, but that the limit that they're going to eventually impose will probably be 1024 by 1024. And I think that will also increase over time. It's not very expensive to have a larger, expensive in render time, that is, to have a larger texture. But they're being conservative because they don't ever want to have to say, no, we're going to have to reduce it. But I think the main driver for it will be their ability to speed up the rendering engine. They're on their third generation rendering engine. They started with WebVR, an A-frame like environment. Then they went to Babylon.js because it was faster and better, and it still wasn't good enough. So they, for their production client, they're using the Unity rendering engine. It's a game engine. It's a very high-end engine, and it is a lot better. But Unity will make their engine faster. People making chipsets for computers will make them faster. The headsets eventually that they'll support will get faster. And as they do, they'll loosen these limits, I'm sure. That's their intention. They just want to be conservative at the beginning. Any other questions?
Carl, there's a couple questions in the chat. So.
Oh, thank you. It's so small here, I wasn't seeing it. What else have we seen currently? I think I understand the question, which is when you're in the builder, here it is. When you're in the builder, you're working totally graphically. So yeah, I guess this would be tree 1 and this would be tree 2, but in a sense, at this point, you don't need to know that, because if I want to move tree 17, I just click on it and move it, right? However, when you do export it to the STK format and you look at the game TS file, where's the first tree? It's the fifth item here. Yeah, okay. So it generated a name for it based on the name of that item in the in their inventory. But when you're writing code, you could call this tree 1, tree 2, or whatever you wanted. If it came from the builder, you might leave it as it is, or you might just, this is Visual Studio Code, by the way, if you haven't seen it before. It's a really nice editor. And, I can just right click here and say, rename the symbol to say tree 1. If I could type. And it changes it everywhere in the code. And I didn't like that, so I hit a Control-Z and it goes back. I'm not sure, Ember, if that answered your question. Copied tree 3 and left tree 3 times. Oh, yes. There's a clone. So if you click this tree and hit duplicate item, and let's say I'm clumsy and I clicked it about 5 times, you can't tell that, and you are wasting triangles. I mean, you really only have one tree in the scene, but you actually, I'm clicking and dragging, you'll see you have several of them here. And Control-Z puts the last one back, and I can hit delete, click delete key, click, or hit delete here. And I guess if you wanted to know for sure that you'd done that, you'd have to look at the SDK file to say, oh, you know what? There's several things here that are the same model, but that's a little rough, right? Yeah, but that's how you would do it. Rob has a question. So Rob points out that this guy right here, this little square in the bottom, and this is 2 by 2. It might be different if you had a different size scene. I'm not sure. It shows you 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I have 9, 10, 11, 12. Wait a minute. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, kind of the tiles, and 4 more, including the 4 pieces of grass for the 4 tiles. Like 13. It says 12 entities. I've either miscounted or something. There's 3 textures. I'm not sure where there's a texture in the scene. Oh, maybe it's the texture on the tiles. Oh, and the grass. The grass and the tiles and some other thing have textures on them. Texture is an image file that's applied to the surface of an object rather than just color. The number of bodies is 20. Maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 4. 12. I'm not sure why. The entity is 12, bodies 20. I don't know. Maybe the trees have trunks separate from the foliage.
Carl?
Yeah.
Oh, I just wanted to point out, when I was building for the contest via this builder, it was interesting because, like you said, when you go to edit, you could edit the scene size. And so if you know how the scene will enlarge as you enlarge it, you can start with a smaller scene and then on the fly enlarge the scene and gain more triangles. It's dynamic.
Okay. Where's the edit scene?
Next to class demo scene, that pencil that you can hardly see.
Right there.
Right there. Yeah. If you click that and edit the scene size, say, and if you play with it enough, you'll know how it only enlarges it in one direction, either to the right and long ways, or so essentially, if you know how it's going to enlarge, you could start at essentially it goes away from, there's a little stick in the corner, in the bottom, the southwest corner. There should be a stick. You see it?
Yep.
Right there. So I believe, I mean, we have to, it's been a while, but I believe it enlarges it to the north and to the east.
Yes.
So if you
Definitely.
start with a small scene and you say, "Oh wow, I'm going to run out of triangles," because when you do run out, you'll get this little box down in the bottom will turn red. You can click on it and you can see what caused you to, what is out of limit. Is it the triangles? Is it the amount of items or whatever it might be? And then you get to say, okay, I'm going to, let's say I did it in a couple of my scenes. I built it close to the southwest corner, and then as I ran out of things, I just added land. And if you just did you I can't remember, did you add? Yeah, see, now you're at 60,000 triangles.
Yeah.
So
I added on one of the dimensions.
right. So
You can add to both at the same time, but Rob is right that rows and columns refer to, I believe, well, let's see. It made it larger to the
to the north.
north.
Right.
Yeah. By the way, you're going to get a lot of spatial reasoning experience in this world because things like when you enter the world, you log in to the real client, you're facing north. And the sun is over your shoulder to your left and to the southwest. If you ever get disoriented, figure out where the sun is, and that's southwest. Southwest is the origin of coordinates within a parcel or within a scene. So if you're building north from that stick, see, can you see the little stick there in the corner, everybody? That little stick here in
Yes.
the, okay, all right, so sorry for my clumsy mouse moves here. That is the southwest corner of the scene and the southwest corner of the southwest parcel in the scene. And all coordinates are from there. It's sort of a default building origin for a scene, and you can change that origin in the SDK, but I usually don't. So I think of this scene as being at the location in the world of the southwest corner of the southwest parcel.
Where are there any like indicators, labels of north, south, east, west?
Nope. When you're in the world, in a scene that you've put, that you've defined but not put ground cover on, you get a different grid. Let me do that for you here. You're going to see a quick use of the SDK.
That stick actually a three-dimensional origin with X and Y?
Yes, it does. If you look up close, there's three colors there. X is to the right. Y is up and down. They have it pointing down. It's really up. Oh, that's Y. Okay. Y is up. Z is to the north. I'll say it again. The X dimension within a scene, the X dimension is positive to the east, positive up in Y, and positive to the north in Z. So X, Y, and Z. On the ground, the parcel coordinates are just called X and Y, and they refer to parcel locations on the ground, X being to the east and Y being to the north.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, I'm Mike Questor, Crypto Frontier. Sorry for jumping in. I hope that's okay. Just a little add-on to what you say, Carl. It comes from gaming because I was rather confused with this X, Y, and Z in the beginning. Because for me, Y would have been more in the horizontal than in the vertical. But there's a neat trick I'd like to share with you, which is from the gaming community or gaming programmers. If you take your left hand and you take your first three fingers, so thumb, pointing finger, and what was middle finger, and just let them go each away in each of their directions, and then you start
perpendicular
X,
to each
Y,
other.
Z, yeah, and then you start with the thumb and you say X, Y, Z, and then that's a way how to remember it, and for me it works quite well.
So like if you hold your left hand up, stick your thumb over to the right, stick your first finger up, stick your second finger away from you, you have X, Y, and Z. These are the coordinates in the space, in the scene. It's a left-hand rule. It turns out your left hand is also useful when you're trying to figure out which do I rotate it positive or negative. It uses the same rule. So we'll show that when we get into modeling and scene building in the STK. Thank you very much. Nice add-on.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Yes, and then you have to say, well, it's a two-finger rule for the parcel location. Like if you just take your thumb to the right, your first finger pointing forward, that's X and Y for coordinates for parcels. All right. I know what I was going to do. I was going to show you quickly something in the SDK quick. Forget why I was going there. What was I saying?
The grid in the SDK.
Oh yes, thank you. That's exactly it. So I made a little directory here. This is a working directory. We'll look at this more in a later assignment. I've opened up the command. I keep a copy of the command. This is Windows, the CMD program, but you can get to it by typing CMD in the start menu. It's this thing here, command prompt. I keep a link to it on my taskbar because I'm using it all the time. And when you're using SDK, you're going back and forth between Windows tools like the Explorer or Code and this window. So I have already installed the SDK. So in here, I can say DCL init in my working directory. Actually, I'll make a second directory, assignment, just called A1. And I'm going into that directory. And now I type DCL init. This will only work if you've installed the SDK, which comes in a later session. But it is now building me a default scene in that directory. It's the same stuff that you would see in that zip file from the SDK output. Now I can do a directory here, and you can see that stuff. You can see that there's a source directory with the game in it. If I really want to see it in the Explorer, I can say Explorer space period, and it pops Explorer up in this directory. I'm looking at it there now. Sometimes that's a useful shortcut. If I'm happy with that, I can say DCL start, and I will see when they create a new scene like this, they create a very simple build in it. It has one cube in the middle of space. So by DCL start, I'm saying I want to preview the scene that I'm in when I'm typing this, and it builds it. And pops up a browser looking at it. That's the Unity logo there, by the way. That's the Decentraland logo. And this is the load time for one of the simplest scenes you can imagine. All right, so there is a one parcel scene. If you kind of look at the ground here, you can see that there's kind of a layering there. There's a grid that fills the whole world. It's about a ½ meter below the ground level. Then there's also this grid that fills your parcels of your scene, which is just like a centimeter below ground level. So if I put a ground cover on this, it would all disappear, and I would only see the box. I'd see the ground cover in the box. Here's a box. In this scene, unlike the builder, the scene actually supports some dynamic behavior. This box is rotating. And if I click the box, it demonstrates that clicking does something. The box just grew and shrunk, changing shape. And every time I click it, I get another cube showing up somewhere in the space. They're all rotating. I think one came in front of the other one here. But you can see from the shadows I'm getting all these boxes. So this is their boilerplate scene, or their basic scene that you get for free when you do DCL init, the SDK, and you can also see how the grid works on the ground. Now, as to the direction of things, the grid has a, they removed that? Oh, interesting. There it is. There's a little bit of writing on one of the 1 meter squares in the 16 meter parcel land tile. And it is not in the southwest corner. Did I move around maybe? Let me try reloading a scene. By the way, that content is transient. So I'm going to reload the scene here with no position. So I should be standing, looking north at the southwest corner of the scene. You spawn into the world looking north, and you're placed at the southwest corner of the scene that you specify. I didn't specify a scene, so I'm at 0, 0. Now, if you try to deploy this to the world, it would say you can't deploy to the central plaza because you don't have rights there. So in building your scene, you will eventually change its coordinates. But yeah, oh my goodness, there's a little teeny grid in here of centimeters or something. I think that writing was over here in the southeast corner and upside down. Interesting. But anyway, so if you make a scene with multiple parcels, you'll get multiple copies of this gray subfloor, I guess you might call it, spanning the land. Want to see the source code for this? So I'm going to kill the scene server that's running on my machine and type code that launched Visual Studio Code and the source games file. And up comes code looking at the source for the scene. So it has a system here that gets called, has a function that gets called every frame, every 30th of a second. And this is what's rotating the cube right there. And then also there's spawning of the original cube and its shape and size and location. And then they're adding a click handler to the cube. So when you click on it, it makes another cube. And the rotator actually is, this might be kind of relevant to Ember's question. There's a loop here that's looking at every entity that's been placed into the scene, including the ones that were generated because of the clicks, and it's rotating them all. So I don't expect people who don't know code to understand the whole of what you see here, but learning a language like TypeScript is kind of like learning a natural language. The best way to learn it is to see examples of good code, just like learning to speak is hearing people talk. So we will be showing bits of script, but along the way, we have a course that will go a little bit more into that. If you want to study TypeScript in more depth, there is a website for the TypeScript language, and it has full documentation and tutorials and things. So over the next few months, you might want to acquire skills in TypeScript gradually, but we will introduce it in this course some. Do we have any other questions at this point? I'll give you a nice landscape to look at.
So we'll need just to build a screen, not to deploy, yeah?
Yes, I haven't deployed anything yet today. All I've done is previewed it locally. So you can do almost everything without having land yourself. You can even deploy a scene to a public server that you have access to and have a URL to it that you can give other people to look at without putting it on land. There's a service called Zeit Now that is free. And when I have built scenes that I want my team to see them, but they don't have access to the land yet, I put them in site now, and then they can go visit them. And that's free, and I'll show you later how to do that. But everything we're seeing here is being rendered on my machine. The code lives on, it's totally local. Yes. Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I've been working with the SDK for maybe nearly a year now, but I've only had access to visit the land for a few months. So all the work done before then was viewing one scene at a time. But now that you have access to land, you can too steep to climb there, huh? Okay. Excuse me. Can I climb up here? Okay, so I'll go out around here. There's some colliders on these objects so that you can not walk through them, and so you can be lifted up as you walk over them. As we exit from this scene, this is a scene, and the edge of it is where this path is. And we're going into a completely separate scene here. Now, if you're doing it locally, you can only see one of these at a time, but once it's uploaded to the land, you can walk around between them because it can be adjacent. So we've seen this stuff before. We have some problems with some trees. We're going to get that sorted out. Sometimes I crash going over here, but here's a scene with a rather large building in it. There's a scene boundary here. You can see this scene that we're in is totally loaded. That one over there is still loading. So if I stop here for a moment, we're going to see the ground cover up here. There are separate scenes that have been uploaded to the world. I think part of the problem is I have some other things open that are also rendering. Let me close this. I'm going to close the builder because it also is busy. If you have a good enough computer, you can run several scenes at the same time, but this is the meeting center at the conference center. It has some rooms and has a large meeting room here. So we've walked across about 5 scenes today in the conference center. They were built separately and uploaded to the world, and then they're like the world just stitches them together side by side.
At the point, Carl, where you saw the building in the distance,
Yes.
Was that about 5 parcels away when it
Yes.
originally starts loading? Okay.
Yes, that's a 9x9 scene, and this building's in the middle of it. It's a very large scene. The conference center has some of the biggest scenes that have been deployed in the world, and the Decentraland developers are using it as a test area to watch for crashes. I haven't seen a crash today. They may have fixed something.
So on a 90 parcel scene, just for example, if you step foot on just one of the parcels, like one of the border parcels of the scene, does it load everything on those 90 lands all at that time? Or does it actually still only load whatever you can see within 5 parcels from where you're at within the scene?
It loads all of it into memory, but only renders what's within a certain distance. Okay. That's my understanding. The biggest scene we have today in the conference center is, I think I have a link to it here. Yeah. This model we were just in, this meeting center, is a photogrammetry rendering of an actual conference center in Munich, Germany, that has been converted into lower poly by Firefox G, also known as Hunter Fox. He also made the mall that's in the VRS center, and he made this corporate complex. I'm showing it to you because it's a very large scene with a single model in it. So as I move around, that whole corporate complex of buildings is one Blender model turned into a GLTF. And you can see that the buildings kind of come and go, but if I walk closer, they appear. That's not because they weren't loaded yet. It's because in this case, it's one model, but it's beyond the rendering distance. So if I back away from this, will I back into a building? Eventually, it starts de-rendering because it's too far.
So it's pretty Pretty a lot of triangles in here, yeah?
Yeah, I don't have. Oh, I stored these without the debug thing turned on. Is there a debug if I just go? When you're in World, it's not so easy to find out the number of triangles, but you can turn on a debugger in the scene if you want. Let me go back to this guy and get a copy of that URL. I forget how, I don't remember how to type it. There's a parameter you can add in addition to the position that will turn on a panel that shows you some more information. It's this part of the, right there, scene debug panel. Actually, what I want to do is I'm going to grab the ampersand also, like that. And go back to my other scene and paste that in right there and hit return to reload the scene with it. Did you have a question? Just
a little comment, FYI. When you're doing kind of heavy rendering, it affects what we can hear of what you're saying.
Ah.
The bandwidth. So
thank you.
Maybe just wait to say important things until after big things have loaded.
Yes. What I've done here is to I've added to the URL scene debug panel ampersand before the position. When you run a preview in Decentraland today, they provide that so that you can get that for free. But now, because I did that, I have a P equals toggle panel here. If I click on the scene and type P, now I have this debugging information. I'm saying poly count. They mean triangles, I think. Because the scene is 9 by 9, I have a quota of 810,000 triangles I could use. This one model, plus the ground cover, just a few more pieces, is using 123,000 triangles. You have quite a bit to work with if you have a large scene. I'm not finding that for most things I try to do I run out of triangles if I'm using low poly content.
What was the command again to bring up the toggle panel?
Is 2 steps. First of all, you have to put this in the command in the URL up here, this part right there. That adds an additional parameter to the call. The question mark says you're adding parameters. The ampersand separates the parameters. And by default, if you just go to Explorer, you don't get this part that I've highlighted. But in the preview, when you do a DCL start, it is provided. Once you're in the world with that parameter there, up in the top right, you'll see P equals toggle panel. So if I click on the scene, so my cursor's in it, and type P, it toggles that panel on and off.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm. There's a reflection in the new materials. It's quite strong. You can see this landscape of trees and stuff reflected off the building. Do you see it? It's a scene from somewhere in Europe, I think, or something. It's not what's actually been. There's no trees over here, right? So it's in 3D rendering. You can say what should be reflected. You know, give me a kind of a sphere or a box around the scene that has an image that gets reflected. And right now, what they have is kind of silly for most scenes. Let me show you a place where it's even more silly. The VRS district.
By the way, Carl, are there going to be a night or something in the world?
I sure hope so. I haven't heard them specifically say that they're going to do that, but when you're like in Second Life, there's a default time of day, and at half the day it's dark, the stars. And you can grab a slider and say what time of day you want it to be for you and your client. I hope they do something like that. There's a thousand things on the wish list, and they're doing the most important stuff first. But yeah, if you want to have like a, kind of a dark, scary scene, for now, you've got to build a giant box around your scene to shut out most of the light. This is another example of a low poly but high texture environment. So it's quite beautiful. This is the VRS Mall. This is actually on land in kind of in the middle of the VRS district. And I have a mechanism here that changes out the ads on the signs, rotates them to different ads. And what I wanted to show you here was the reflection in this glass. Oh, they've toned it down some. You can see it some here too. That scene that you're seeing reflected in the glass is like has a big, European building of some sort in it or something. I'm not sure where it is in the world, but it was this surface here is fairly shiny, and it was really intense. It was like a mirror, black mirror, but they have improved it. When you're in the world, you're seeing the very latest version of the SDK rendering stuff. When you are doing a preview, you're seeing the version that you've most recently downloaded. So it's worth updating your SDK from time to time, and we'll show you how to do that in a later episode. This scene, by the way, is one model for the mall structure itself. The billboards and the furniture and stuff are separate models that were added. The scene, the mall itself was made by Hunter Fox, Firefox G, modeler that works in Decentraland. And he's also a member of the Janus VR team. So he and I and Jin and Crowd Conscious, who is the other district leader in VRS, took a couple hours one day, and in Janus VR, we put Hunter Fox's mall model in, and we did all this decorating. There's stuff in all the stores. There's furniture out here in the mall. There's a playground over here. We did this, 4 of us did this in about an hour using the Janus VR tool. The Janus VR tool is a scene building tool. It's not a modeling tool. A scene building tool, kind of like Builder is, except you can bring in external content. You have more control over sizing and moving things around. And it will now export, a little bit of hand wave, it'll export to us an SDK scene. So that's how the bulk of this got done. And then I've gone in with on the SDK afterwards and done things like added this signboard here with a sign on it for that was done after the Janus session, as was the putting a billboard up here for an open source. It's an open source TypeScript code that somebody made, somebody that's in this room today with us. Okay. Oh, I should say Crypto Frontier. Thank you. Thank you for being our first quote vendor in the mall.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. For us, it was Eiley and myself. Eiley did the modeling, and I did the coding.
Okay, very good. Any other questions? Does anybody have any concerns or questions or uncertainty about their ability to do that first exercise? The first assignment here, which is pretty much what we did today. Creating a scene, going and adding things to it, moving things around, exporting it when you're done using the download, taking a peek in the zip file of what's there, restoring that scene so you know how to do a restore, and then take a snapshot of your scene and post it in the class channel so I know that you've completed it. And I encourage people to post questions, thoughts, lessons, things they've figured out, examples. in that Discord channel. And please make supporting comments of things you see that other people have made, or ask them questions. So this should be very interactive between our sessions.
There's another comment in the chat. Carl.
Thank you, Catherine.
That was Kelly.
Oh, hi, Kelly. Oh, in the builder tool. Is there ability to turn off the snap in the builder tool? I closed it to get some rendering time back.
Amber says she couldn't find an option.
I kind of remember there is one. I just don't remember offhand how to do it. Is there help? Oh, go up a second.
I said ignore snap to grid.
There it is. Hold the shift.
Hold the shift key while you're moving. So I think that what we're trying to do is like rotate this a little bit, but it'll snap to certain angles, right? If I hold down the shift key, it's much smoother. Probably the same with moving. If I it snaps, you see it snapping, and if I hold down the shift key, it doesn't snap. Ember, does that address your question? I got the key shortcuts from this little keyboard icon here, and there are things here that you might want to use. Yeah, you can make an argument it could be a toggle. Oh, show colliders. That's the C key. If I hold down the C key, I clicked on the scene first. Otherwise, it doesn't know to apply it. But the C key is a toggle, and it shows the edges of the mesh of the colliders. A collider is a simpler object that is, kind of surrounding the model, typically simpler, and it's invisible normally, but it keeps you from walking inside that space. So it would appear as though 2 of these trees have colliders and the other 2 don't. Let's see what that looks like when we look in the scene. The C key works here too. I was wrong. You can see that there are colliders. They're just much higher mesh. And by the way, they occupy some of the triangles. I'm pretty sure. Boink. Can't walk into the tree.
Yeah, maybe you can add some audio there. So when you walk in, it's just boink.
Good idea. I'll submit it to Nico as a request. The boink. In Second Life, you can say what do you want the sound to be when you're walking on this surface, and you can change it as you're walking on different surfaces. Sansar has that too. Right now, you walk and you don't hear anything, but you can jump. I assume that works here. No, but in World, when you're walking, you can jump by hitting the space key. So if you really have the desire, you can jump over these things. It's kind of fun. There was a lot of jumping going on yesterday when some of us were in World together. I think we had 10 people within sight of each other in some of the scenes in World. So they have it up to at least 10 avatars can be in them. There doesn't seem to be any problem with having multiple avatars. I think they're shooting for like 100. But
this one should go to 11.
What was that?
I said this one should go to 11.
That's what you said. That's a Spinal Tap reference. That's funny. By the way, I am working on connecting these rotating, changing signs up to a real advertising network that would generate revenue for a district. That'd be one way to monetize. Another way is to rent a space to, this space now has been rented actually or assigned to a vendor. You could also put up a, a QR code that somebody could use their cell phone to look at and go see something. You can create a way that somebody can make a payment. Let me go find that, an example of that. This is the forest scene. If you were aware of the last round of the hackathon for SDKs, this is a scene that was created by the Forest District for that. Katherine helped with modeling, and Alexander did the heavy lift. But he also created a mechanism in here that you can touch and make a donation from your MetaMask wallet. And at some point, he had accumulated 20,000 mana in donations. That's some kind of real money.
Carl Ember says she thinks that she doesn't think you can apply any of these with the builder yet. Just a note.
That you can't.
Ember
Yes,
says,
yes. All the things that I'm saying that will be useful for monetization are SDK things. You're right. There's a crow up in here that doesn't like you to walk near him or touch him. But the pay thing is this rock here. Did you hear the sound? I'm not sure if I'm sending sound, but anyway, the crow made a sound and flew away. And if you touch this, you get a yeah, almost 20,000 mana have been donated to this scene already. I'm not sure. I don't think I'm one of the donators. I don't think I've done this yet, but I think if you hit start, yes, my MetaMask came up for a moment, and actually I clicked 3 more times, and so it has 4 transactions. It's asking me if I want to. I could have changed the number here, but if I wanted to donate 100 mana to the scene, I'm going to. Oh, I don't think I have any mana in my wallet here. This wallet. So not at the moment, but anyway, it works. So there are ways of monetizing. Eventually there'll probably be some mechanism by which you can restrict who can come into a space based on if they have paid a ticket to a concert or something. That would be probably a scripting solution. Any other questions? Anything in the chat here? Are you guys hearing the sound of the birds?
no.
I did.
No, not also.
Me not, no.
Interesting.
I heard the crow. I don't hear any birds in the background.
Yeah, I can hear that now.
Okay, I turned on the share computer sound.
Same
So-
here. I
Yeah,
hear it.
yeah. That I hear as well.
If I walk that,
Yeah, that's good.
yeah, the way to make a UI go away is you can hide it here with this eye in the lower right corner, or you can hit exit if it provides an exit, or you can walk out of the scene. It's only UI that's in a scene is only showing in that scene. So if I find that bird again, where is he? There he is. Click on him. Oh, he didn't make a sound that time. I'm going to reload this scene so I get to hear the crow sound from the beginning.
Hey,
I
Carl,
hit Control F5 is what I did to reload it. Yes?
the grey planes that we're seeing there in the forest district, are they colliders that have gone wrong, or materials that need altering, just so we can fix them and make that area look as good as possible?
I will look in a moment. There's a lot of, I think there's some empty land still in the forest. There's also adjacent district areas that are not filled in. So I'm not sure yet. Let's take a look.
Okay, awesome.
Ground hasn't resed here yet. There it is. While I'm here, let me click on the bird. Or bird is here somewhere. There he is. You heard that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Now the question was blank areas. So you made a really high detail scene on textures for the hackathon, and then low poly scenes are filling much of the rest of the district. Did you fill up the whole district now? You know, Catherine?
Sorry, what was that?
Do you know if you or Alexander have filled up the entire forest district now with these lower poly scenes? I mean, lower textured scenes?
Do not think so. That's not part of the plan.
Okay. These have appeared recently, and I assumed that Alexander did them. You can see we're right at a scene boundary here between a scene that has a lot of texture on the ground and a scene that's just color.
Oh, it's a bit of a harsh contrast. We could maybe fix that, make it more seamless.
Yes, you can put the same ground cover that's the image on here. You can put it on the polys that make up this. But you were asking about these gray rocks?
No, if you face the other way and go up to where the pool is, there are just, sorry, it's really hard to point doing this, other direction. If I point at the screen, it doesn't help.
Yeah. Is this the right direction now?
No, behind you. Yeah, a little bit more.
You're talking about this, there's one unfilled parcel over here.
No, it wasn't the unfilled parcel, but more, can you see to the left, there are just some kind of grayish white plains up on the top of the hill.
Oh, I see it from the top of the hill. Oops. Colliders on trees. Sorry if I'm making you dizzy here. Oops. Can I get out? Yes. Okay.
So there,
That is
what is that?
This gray thing right here.
Yeah.
Oops, let's try not go in the water again. I'm all wet now, by the way. My clothes are just drenched.
Email again.
That is, I'm guessing that this is an example of a tree foliage whose alpha isn't working. Or that you have a alpha image on here, but you forgot to load the image into the memory. So it's not actually being painted. So it's just, you're seeing the, I'm guessing this is a plant.
Yeah, it should be.
Yeah. I would say that what's happened is, most likely is that the image that has an alpha layer in it isn't in the scene, it's missing. So it's just showing the stuff not transparent.
Perfect. I'll take a look at the files in the folder and update anything that's necessary.
Say that again?
Thank you. I'll take a look at the folders and the file from the hackathon and update any of the trees if necessary.
Yeah, okay. I think that's what it is. And by the way, the stuff to the south of here is the conference center, but there is one extra parcel at the corner here that is forest district, and you might want to put some ground cover on that.
Perfect, yeah.
Yeah. You see it on the map if you look at the conference center map. Well, I'm going to share the conference center map with you folks.
Well, I have a question about going from scene to scene. Is there anything besides just accidental changes in visual characteristics that where you can tell where you're going, entering and exiting scenes? Like, is there a thing that you can like a heads-up display that you could see what scene that you're in a separate scene? Or
let me show you. The answer is mostly no. Oops, that's not the right window. Where is the... Did I do it over the top of this? Maybe I did. I sure did. That was silly of me. While that's loading, I will get this thing up that I was looking for. But go back here. I'll show you what you can know. What you can know is that you've crossed a parcel boundary. So if there's like the same stuff on both sides of two different parcels, you can tell when you cross it without seeing a line. But usually scenes are fairly, especially if they're made by different builders, like parts of different districts, they're going to look pretty different. Let me show you some examples. So this is conference center ground in a scene that has some trees in the distance. And right there is a transition to a different scene, the one with that building in it. And just because of the way that the Decentraland doesn't yet have a tiling mechanism for putting things on, the ground cover here is texture on a very thin box that I made, but they don't have the ability to tile the texture. So this texture here is, only this wide and stretched all the way down the district, the scene. Whereas this one is stretched over an entire scene, and so you see a different kind of stretch. So you can see that there's a boundary here, but you don't know, is that just an object boundary or is it a scene boundary? But if you look at the URL up here, see it says 17.118. If I go a little bit further, it'll change. Now I'm at 18.118. So I crossed into a different parcel, so I do know that much. Also, if you have access to a map that somebody has made for you, here's a map of the conference center. I'm going to put it in our chat here. I don't want to make this public in the Discord yet, but anybody here can happily welcome to have a copy of this link to the conference center map. Just don't publish it, please. You can find your way around. So for example, if I want to land right in the middle of the Lotus Temple scene, I could just click on the map here, and it's horizontal. It's east-west, it's 11. North-south, it's 107. 11.107. So if I go back here and put in, there you're putting a percentage 2C in, which is a comma character. But I'm just going to go 11, what did I say? Talking too much, 11.107. You can tell the difference between a preview scene and an actual world scene by whether there's a red logo on it. 11.107, hit return. Or right down here in the chat, I can go /go to 11.107. It has about the same effect. It's actually a little bit faster to do it in the chat, I hear. You're reloading less. So we're now in a different scene, and the map helped me get there, right?
The map you could make hyperlinked so that you could just click on it and go there, right?
In Google Docs, I don't know. I probably insert a link. Let's do this. No, not builder. This guy. No. This guy. Just for grins. Let me try that. I'm still in the scene, right? Yeah, okay. Where's my map? There it is. I don't want to do it where the words are, but if I do it here, oh, there was a thing called insert link. Maybe I'll do it here to make sure I don't mess it up. Insert link. Paste that link in, but with no text. Now what happens? Yeah, okay. Not beautiful, but it's a concept, huh? I wonder if I can like shrink the font to like nearly 0 on that cell. Yeah, that's not too bad. There's probably room on most of these.
Make it invisible.
By having the font color be the same as the background color?
By having it be transparent.
Transparent text?
Yeah.
I don't know how to do that in Google Docs. Do you?
Yeah. In the font color down there, there's like an icon with the A with the it's underlined right now in blue. where you see bold, italic, the font with a color underneath it.
I'm not seeing color.
Do you see, like, not in the menu, in the in the toolbar, there's a B, and I, yeah. If you click on that, there should be a no color. The one on the very upper right. Oh, usually there is.
But actually, it's kind of nice to see that there is a link there. You can click on it. I'm just going to leave that there for now. Thank you. Good idea.
You could wrap it as well, so you'd know exactly which box it's in.
Nice. That works. Makes it kind of inconspicuous and easy. That's not necessarily exactly where, that doesn't correspond to where you're going to land. So I might readjust. But thank you very much. That's a very good idea. I like it. Click on that, and you will go see that place.
Magic.
Pardon?
Magic.
Magic. Any other questions? How are we doing on time? Yeah, we have 10 minutes more. Let's talk about scheduling of meetings. I have a conflict at this time for the 10th. Is the 10th a Saturday? Yes. I am occupied from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. my time, which would be 6 p.m. UTC. I could do it after that, like 7 p.m. UTC and 2 p.m. that day, just move it later. But I think that for most weeks, this time works best for me. And I think there's a variety of how well it works for other people. That's not our next meeting, so I can announce it again then. But my plan is to hold a session for up to 2 hours every Saturday while we're going through this course. And if there's a weekend that I have to travel, then we'll either skip a week or we'll pick a different time, or I will open up the meeting but let somebody else kind of help facilitate it. But probably what we'll do is reschedule if I have to travel. Any thoughts or questions? It seems like we're off to a good start here. I want to thank you all for showing up. I'll stay on until 11 in case anybody has any questions. I mean, I'll stay on for another 8 minutes in case anybody has any questions.
Carl, I have a request. This is Kelly. I just wanted to know if there was any way that you would be able to at least indicate where, because I may be the only one in this group that's using a Mac, but anytime that there would be a different either set of commands or different sequence of things or different file system or whatever for a Mac than for a PC, if you would could just indicate that in the tutorials or. Yeah,
here's the problem with that. I'd be happy to do it, except I am a Mac hardly novice.
Okay,
so what
Katherine said in the chat, I don't know if you saw, she said she's Mac too.
Yeah.
We'll buddy up.
You're Mac. I think a lot of people are. I think most of Decentraland dev is Mac. What I would invite is for people to add comments to the document to explain the alternative, if they know the alternative. The document is commentable by any of you.
Okay.
Yeah, please do. Good idea.
Thank you, Katherine.
Good. I know that there's others on this call that are Mac users. Well, we're off to a good start, I'd say. Any other suggestions for the course? I am recording this in the Zoom recording mechanism, which there'll be a link that I will provide in the class channel in Discord that will show this. People that missed can catch up. And I think we need to do that because there's some people that may never be able to attend the live session. And then probably long-term, I will edit some of those videos, download them, edit them, and put them up as YouTube videos in the future, but not with everything that's in them. Just a lot of stuff. Thank you for participating because I want to kind of turn this into a regular course, either taught like this or a mixture of this and some YouTube videos in the future. And so the things you're asking, the problems you run into are just really going to be helpful in refining the course. Thank you very much.
I have another question, Carl.
Yeah.
Is there sound yet in the builder?
Is there sound in
the builder?
No, not in the builder. In the SDK, yes. So right now, if you want to build a complex dynamic scene with sound and stuff, but you want to start with the builder, you can, and quickly use the builder, quickly lay things out in a scene, the static content, the trees. You could put something as a placeholder in the scene of where you want to put a different model that you're going to add in the SDK. And then you can download the scene from the builder and open it in the SDK and proceed to add sound and animation and replace objects with, or just add objects that are from models. So you could use the builder as a sketcher for a scene, but not yet for dynamic behavior, scripts and sounds and stuff. I think that'll come later. But in a later lesson, I show you how to use a builder HUD that I've made and open sourced that allows you, once you're in a scene in the SDK, in the preview, to grab things and move them around and add new entities in the SDK. And you can do that in a scene that has sound or animation. It works. So there's a path. But right now, if you want to add sound, you have to write TypeScript. Or you have to go to one of the samples that Decentraland or others have made that have examples of sound, and copy some code and paste it into your SDK scene. We'll do some of that later. One of the lessons is how to go get code from other places that people have made, the samples or open source stuff, some of my tools, and put them into your scene in Visual Studio Code. Visual Studio Code has Mac and Linux versions too, by the way, so we can use that tool. Blender works in all three also. So we have universal tools, just not a universal instructor.
So Carl, to be whitelisted for the Explorer.Decentraland, I should send you my email or something?
Yes, send me your email, whichever way of privacy you want. You can direct message me. When you do that, remind me that the reason you're doing that is to get whitelisted, and then I will direct message the person who does that and ask them to prioritize you because you're in the class.
Okay.
I think they will.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll do it in a minute in Discord.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I can't guarantee you when that will happen, but I think that's coming along pretty quickly now. They added a bunch of people. They've even added some journalists who are somewhat skeptical. So they're getting brave. They're opening it more to the public gradually through various people who blog and publish. DCL Bloggers, DCL Plazas, and Ryan Schultz have all been added in the last week. So there's some blogging going on now. Any other questions? Well, this has been a great pleasure, and I'll look forward to communications and questions and chat in the classroom channel. Let's do it in the classroom channel so that it'll be free from other clutter that might be in the other channels, even the lobby. And then we'll see you same time, same channel next week. You won't need to register again. This is an ongoing meeting, and once you've registered, you're registered.
Thank you. Bye.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, Carl, thanks a lot for that. And I think this is really a great initiative to get people together. I think we're probably still over the course we will link a bit, because I see now the real names, and we probably want to link that at some point to handles. So I'm Crypto Frontier, or Mike Quest in real life. And yeah, so I'll try to join again. I have a bit of a constrained family life and well, some other things, but I heard some kids in the background as well. So yeah, but it's really great. Thanks a lot for that, and maybe a little bit of promotion for our project. So Eili and myself, we did this hackathon contribution of DCL. We called it Landscapes, or Programmed Landscapes. Main idea is that it is SDK, so it is programming centric. It is less, let's say, a builder or designer centric. But what we did is basically we created a set of functions that you can add to your Decentraland code or scene. And by doing that, you can place various complex objects into layers. And by the way, sound as well. But it has a few bugs, so don't do it right now. But there will be updates. I'm working on it whenever I have the time. I'm raising that. But the idea is that it's kind of like it shouldn't how should you say, compete with the existing tool set. It should more complement it so that you can do more large scale scenes. So our idea is, because Eili is district leader. It's a small district in the end, but yeah, I'm also contributing to Etheria. Looking forward to that. So I think we can, with that, we can really bring some content into world in large scale. So one thing is to work on one scene, but then again to deploy, let's say, a residential area or a forest. We have some randomized function in there, so that you can place elements in world that they look a bit less planned, so a bit more natural by using random. Okay, that's it.
Well, thank you very much. And I strongly encourage that you meet each other, work together, collaborate on projects. Some of you will have specialized skills. For example, there are some of you that are already really strong modelers, but are learning on TypeScript, or vice versa. And collaborating is highly encouraged, both for this class and for afterwards. Again, for me, the primary goal of this class is to create a body of builders who know how to do much of this and can really help each other and others and themselves in getting the world built. So one of the last, I think it's the last assignment, is we'll talk about ways you can put your shingle out or work on projects with other people. So you can monetize your skills if you want. Well, thank you all very much, and I think that's a wrap for now. But feel free to advertise your skills, anything you've built that you want to share. If it's pretty specific to the class, go ahead and put it in the class chat channel. It's the one called course, etc., right below the lobby. If it's more general, maybe in the lobby. There's also, of course, the builder channel in the Decentraland server. There's the building channel, which is maybe a little bit more to this course's focus. It's not just about the builder. And then there's one called developers. So developers, building, there's even a hiring channel there if you already want to start marketing your skills and helping other projects. So thank you all very much, and I'll see you in chat this week and here again next week.
Okay, bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, thanks a lot, Carl.
Bye.
Bye.
I'll share my link in the chat as well.
Okay. Bye all.
Okay. Bye bye.